What if I told you that the very man who once publicly praised Robyn as his soulmate turned around and shamed her in the most humiliating way possible? This moment wasn't just awkward. It rocked the very foundation of the Sister Wives narrative and left viewers in stunned silence. Let's step into this unforgettable moment. Years ago, Sister Wives viewers saw Robyn occupy a special place in Kody Brown's heart. She was the wife who arrived last, the so-called favorite, the one who received all of Kody's time, attention, and protection. While Meri, Janelle, and Christine fought to capture fragments of his love, Robyn was always special. She was commonly referred to as the safe place for Kody, the one who understood him best. But this is where things get really shocking. In a flash of anger, all of that protection, all of that gentleness, went out the window. Kody said something no husband should ever say, especially not on TV, especially not to the one person he had always protected. He shamed Robyn for her weight. The audience couldn't get their heads around what they heard. The rest of the room fell silent after he spoke, and it was more deafening than anything. You could almost sense the sting of the put-down, the look of astonishment on Robyn's face, and the shudder of unease that rippled through the family. For a man who'd stood up for Robyn all these years against the other wives' jealousy and criticism, this was a shocking reversal. And let me stop right there with a question to you. If the one you trusted most, the one you gave up everything for, turned around and humiliated you in public, how would you feel? That's the power of this moment. Now, to put into perspective the gravity of this humiliation, we have to flash back. Robyn came into the Brown family in 2010, and the dynamic changed almost immediately. Kody divorced Meri so that he could marry Robyn legally and adopt her children. He immersed himself in that relationship, sometimes to the detriment of his other wives. This wasn't love, it was adoration, and it bred jealousy and resentment in the rest of the family. Robyn frequently bore the brunt of being the favorite. She was blamed for the cracks in the family, accused of taking Kody away from the other wives. But in the midst of it all, she was fiercely protective of him. She stuck by him when Christine left. She came to his defense when Janelle questioned his leadership. And she even remained silent when Meri discussed how unloved she felt. So picture the surprise when, after all these years of devotion, Robyn found herself in the crosshairs of Kody's wrath. This wasn't a husband losing his temper with his wife. This was the moment Kody cut down the one friend he had left, and it left the whole family reeling. Kody's comment wasn't even about weight. It was complicated with frustration, resentment, and weariness. The pandemic years had shredded the family. His leadership had been challenged over and over. Christine had already retreated. Janelle had her hand half out the door, and Meri had checked out emotionally. The only person he believed he could rely on, Robyn, was now the recipient of his bitterness. And the timing couldn't have been worse. Christine was sitting there, observing. Christine, the wife who had suffered years of what she described as neglect and favoritism. For her, this wasn't just painful, it was a validation. She had always maintained that Kody's definition of love was conditional, and now everyone was witnessing it firsthand. Robyn's expression told it all. She was shocked, embarrassed, and totally hurt. For once, she did not jump to his defense. For once, she was not the shield. And that silence said it all. Now here's where the drama intensifies further. Viewers at home were conflicted. Some called it karma. Robyn was finally experiencing some of what the other wives had endured for years. Others were truly sympathetic, because regardless of what she had done to bring down the family, no woman deserves to be shamed by her husband, not to mention like this. And here's something strong to consider. When the favorite wife is no longer immune to criticism, what does that mean for the health of the marriage? This was not a thoughtless remark. It was the opening in the armor. It revealed that even Robyn, the final wife standing, couldn't maintain under the pressure of Kody's ire indefinitely. And just when you think this can't get any worse, Christine decides she's had enough and drops a bombshell truth that turns everything around. But let's stay here a while before we arrive at Christine's moment. One scene, one astonishing comment, was the match that ignited the blaze. It reminded everyone, wives, kids, and viewers alike, that no one was safe from Kody's anger, not even Robyn. The dynamics flipped immediately. What had been rumors of favoritism became outright cracks of betrayal. And Christine, ever the one with fire in her voice and truth on her lips, was poised to take this already incendiary moment and make it one for the books. But just when you think the drama couldn't cut any deeper, Christine steps forward with a calm fire in her voice and drops a truth bomb that nobody saw coming. Now let's take a deep breath here. The air was already thick following Kody's shameful words to Robyn. It was the kind of pause where everyone holds their breath, waiting to know if someone is going to say something. And then Christine did. Christine Brown, blunt, resolute, and the one who had previously spoken for her independence, wasn't going to let this moment slip by. Christine had been labeled the emotional one, the wife incapable of dealing with Kody's favoritism, for years. But in this instant, her tone held something different. It wasn't hurt, it was clarity. She gazed at Robyn, then at Kody, and you could see the tension in her eyes. She had spent years disappointed. She had seen Kody prioritize Robyn over her failing marriage, and now watching Kody rip Robyn apart, before everyone else, Christine seized her opportunity. Christine's voice broke through the silence, soft even, but with a force that made everyone lean in. She explained to Kody that this was not about weight. It was about respect, or the absence of it. She reminded him of the family he had created on the principle of love should be multiplied, not divided. And yet here they were, witnessing that promise shatter before their very eyes. And here's the hook for you. This wasn't Christine speaking her mind. This was Christine holding up a mirror and forcing Kody to see the man he had become. What she had to say was weighty, not only because of what was being said, but because of the person doing the saying. Christine had already left him. She had taken her freedom for herself. She had nothing remaining to lose, and that provided her with an authority that the other wives did not possess at that time. To Robyn, Christine's words were comforting and devastating all at once. On the one hand, finally someone was standing up for her. On the other, it revealed a reality Robyn had not been willing to confront, that being Kody's favorite was not protection at all. It was a momentary shield, one that could shatter the very moment Kody chose to lash out. Now let's take a moment to consider how the rest of the family must have felt. Janelle, sitting close by, had long been the stabilizing force. She'd witnessed Kody's favoritism, witnessed Christine's struggles, and witnessed Meri's drift away. To see Christine stand up now, you could almost hear the unspoken nod of accord from Janelle. Meri also seemed to sit back with a quiet satisfaction, as if to think, finally someone is saying what I've felt for years. Fans at home were on the edge of their seats. Social media erupted in real time. Viewers weren't only surprised by Kody's brutalness, they were abuzz with Christine's courage. Some described her as the voice of reason, the one finally speaking out about the behavior that had torn the family apart. Others questioned whether Robyn, who had always stood up for Kody, would ever realize what the other wives had suffered. And that's the kicker. Whereas Christine's truth came crashing down like a sledgehammer, what made this moment of pure greatness was Kody's response, or lack thereof. Kody attempted to brush it under the rug. He awkwardly laughed, shrugged it off, and pretended as if Christine's words didn't count. But here's the catch. Silence is louder than alibis. And in that silence, everybody could hear the truth. Kody did not have a response. Christine had touched a nerve. She revealed the very thing Kody had been attempting to keep in the dark, that his so-called leadership had devolved into favoritism, resentment, and bitterness. And for Robyn, it meant she was no longer invincible. This was the moment of truth. Thus far, Robyn had been the sole wife standing by him. She defended him when the others grilled him. She consoled him when he felt rejected. But now, after having been humiliated and then listening to Christine's words, even Robyn couldn't avoid the fissures in their marriage. And don't forget the fans. For so long people had spoken against Robyn, holding her responsible for the collapse of the family. But now, with this moment, some felt differently. Compassion set in. People viewed her no longer as the unapproachable favorite, but merely another wife caught up in Kody's tempest. And that attitude did it. Because here's the truth. When the truth comes to light, it doesn't simply shatter the quiet. It lays the groundwork for the type of bombshell that rewrites the entire narrative. Christine's truth wasn't only about that moment. It was about years of pain, years of seeing Kody split his love rather than multiplying it. It was about promises broken and a family that was falling apart. And while Christine's words hung there, Robyn's silence testified. She didn't defend Kody, she didn't give back. She simply sat there, drinking in the reality of what had been told. For the first time, it seemed as if she was coming to terms with the truth the other wives had known for so long. And that's why this was the turning point. This was the moment when the East versus them narrative of Robyn versus the other wives all of a sudden flipped. It wasn't the wives versus each other anymore. It was them all. Christine, Janelle, Meri, and now even Robyn, confronting the reality of what Kody had become. Think about the room now. You could sense the air change as each sentence Christine uttered shattered the family foundation like glass. Let's get things in context. The words had been spoken. Christine had said what everyone knew but had never been said out loud. She wasn't screaming. She wasn't angry. She was steady and calm, and that made it all that much stronger. And in that silence that followed, every single member of the family responded, each one differently. Janelle moved first, though she didn't speak much. She simply shook her head, nearly whispering, as if to say, "See, this is what I've been warning you about." Janelle was always the practical one, the one who attempted to make the most of an involved situation. But inwardly, she had long recognized that Kody's favoritism and short temper were the cracks dividing the family. And now, before her very eyes, it was being revealed to everyone in a fashion no one could dispute. Meri sat back, her face telling a story all its own. For years, she had quietly endured being pushed aside. She knew what it was like to feel invisible in her own marriage. And when Kody humiliated Robyn, and Christine called him out, Meri's expression almost looked like relief. Not joy, not gloating, just a quiet recognition that finally someone else was carrying the truth out into the open. And then Robyn. She had been quiet since Kody's comment, pale-faced, wide-eyed, her feelings plain on her face. Robyn was always ready to come to his defense, to bound in and water down his words. Not this time. This time the cut was too deep. She remained quiet, and the silence spoke louder than any explanation she might have offered. And here's the amazing part. When Robyn didn't stand up to Kody, the whole family power dynamic changed. Consider that Robyn had been his rock, his strongest supporter for years. When Christine complained about him, Robyn stood up for him. When Janelle criticized him, Robyn comforted him. Even when Meri withdrew from him, Robyn attempted to fix things. She was the glue that kept his dominion intact. But in that moment, she didn't defend him. She didn't voice a word. She simply sat there, her silence heavier than any words. For the children, the experience was all the more complex. Some of them had witnessed these patterns occur in the past. Dad's rage, mom's tears behind closed doors, the pent-up tension that hung in the air. But this was different. This was out in the open. This was irreversible. Even the children, who so often attempted to avoid getting caught up in the adults' battles, could tell that something essential had shifted. And don't forget the watching public. Viewers weren't simply viewing a reality program any longer. They were viewing a family disintegrate live. Social media was abuzz with opinions, outrage, shock, sympathy, and even vindication. Some of the fans exclaimed, "Finally Christine is telling the truth for us all." Others exclaimed, "Now perhaps Robyn will get an idea of what the other wives experienced." And some simply could not believe that Kody, who had at one time referred to Robyn as his soulmate, would embarrass her so callous. Kody, naturally, tried to blow it all off. He laughed too hard. He rolled his eyes. He pretended that Christine's words were just bitterness. But every single person in the room, and every viewer at home, could tell otherwise. He was shaken. He hadn't got a response. He hadn't got an explanation. Christine's words had struck to the very heart. And for once, Kody Brown, the man who never didn't have a response, didn't speak. And that silence, that nervous laugh, was the evidence Christine's words had finally pierced the armor Kody had been wearing. This was not another family fight. It was a turning point. Up to now, the family life had been polarized by camps, Robyn and Kody together, then the rest of the wives. But now it was no longer polarized. Christine's bombshell made everyone see Kody in a different light. Even Robyn, his most devoted wife, couldn't muster the defense of him. Janelle's quiet disapproval, Meri's subtle relief, Christine's bold honesty, and Robyn's silence, they all told the same story. The man who once stood as the confident leader of a plural family was losing his grip. The cracks were no longer hidden. They were wide open for all to see. And that's what made this moment unforgettable. It wasn't about a cruel comment or a defensive tantrum. It was about the breakdown of an image, the unraveling of a man who once kept everything together. While they sat in this dense silence, all of them knew that something had changed. This was not another argument to be pushed under the table. This was the beginning of something greater, the beginning of the breakdown of Kody's last stronghold. This was the moment that turned everything on its head. Christine shared a secret that left Kody speechless and Robyn crying. Christine had been biding her time for years. She had spent decades waiting for a husband who never arrived, waiting for kisses to be given to someone else. And when Kody embarrassed Robyn, the woman he once treated royally, Christine couldn't remain quiet any longer. She drew a deep breath, leaned in, and stared Kody directly in the face. Her tone was smooth, almost too smooth, but her words were biting enough to pierce the heavy tension hanging in the air. You forced us to compete for your attention, she charged. You made us adversaries. And now you're blaming Robyn for the same traits you once complimented her on. Those words hit like a hammer. The other wives had spoken about it for years, that Kody didn't merely prefer Robyn. He made the others fight for every crumb of his attention. But no one had ever put it quite so bluntly. No one had ever had the courage to say it out loud in his presence. And here's where the shock deepens. Christine wasn't just airing out frustration. She was revealing the realness Kody never wanted the cameras to witness. Christine did not stop there. She shared with him about the nights she cried alone, aware that Kody was spending another evening with Robyn. She shared about how the children perceived the inequality, how they saw Dad being there for some and not being there for others. Then she dropped the bomb that sent Robyn into a spin. You made Robyn out to be your ideal wife, Christine told him. But now you're bringing her down the same way you brought us down. This is not about how much she weighs. This is about your pride, Kody. You can't stand that the picture you've built begins to fall apart. The room fell silent. Robyn's face dropped. Her eyes welled up with tears. For years she had stood up for Kody no matter what. She had convinced herself that she was different, that her relationship with him was safer, stronger. But now Christine's words confronted her with something she had never acknowledged before. She was not immune. She was not exempt. Kody attempted to laugh, attempted to brush it aside with his standard bravado. But his eyes gave him away. He was rattled. He was unscripted for the first time in a very long time. Christine had pulled the curtain aside, and there was no place to hide. And here was the most discussed part by fans. Christine wasn't bitter. She was free. She no longer fought for Kody's love. She wasn't pleading for his attention. She was just being honest, and that made her stronger than anyone else in the room. And that's what made it unforgettable. Christine wasn't just speaking for herself. She was speaking for every wife who had been silent. Meri nodded silently, almost agreeing. Janelle's face relaxed, as if relieved that someone finally uttered what she'd always known. And Robyn, she simply sat there, crying openly, unable to refute the truth anymore. For fans at home, it was charged. Social media was filled with tweets and comments. Some cheered Christine for telling it like it is at last. Others stated that they had never seen Robyn look so shaken, so vulnerable. And some noted the irony. After years of being Kody's defender, the one needing defending was now Robyn. Christine's bombshell was not just words. It was a power shift. Kody had held the reins for years. He had made the rules, chosen who he spent his time with, and drawn the picture of a man working to keep his family together. But in a few sentences, Christine took it all away. She exposed the cracks, the favoritism, and the pride that had torn their family apart from the inside. And here's where it gets personal. Robyn, in tears, didn't fight back. She didn't defend him. She didn't even attempt to rationalize it. Rather, she gazed at Christine with a look of pain and understanding. It was as if she finally got the years of pain the other wives had endured. And that's the real strength of Christine's bombshell. It didn't merely reveal Kody. It made Robyn confront the truth she had been evading for years. Christine sat back, her statement made, her heart lighter than it had been in years. She wasn't angry, she was free. And because she was free, what she said carried all the more meaning. It was devastating to Kody. His grip on the story was loosened. His reputation as the strong husband, the patriarch of a large plural family, was beginning to crumble. And the worst part, the one person he believed would never forsake him. Robyn was now witnessing the reality for herself. This was not Christine's shocker alone. This was the moment that the entire family knew the story had irretrievably changed. The dust had hardly settled, but the damage was done. Christine's bombshell had shaken the Brown family to its core, and there was no turning back. Christine sat back in her chair, serene in a manner that surprised nearly everyone else. The secret was out, and she no longer bore the burden of keeping it inside. For the first time in years, she didn't seem like someone struggling to get scraps of love. She seemed like someone who had finally decided to pick herself. But in the other room, the blowback was impossible to miss. Robyn remained stone-faced, smearing tears from her cheeks. She had always thought she was Kody's exception, his wife who could do no harm in his mind. Now that myth had been destroyed. The man who once loved her had embarrassed her. And Christine's words had told her what she secretly dreaded. She wasn't invincible after all. Kody meanwhile attempted to rebound. He sat up straight in his chair, tried to laugh, and grumbled something about people being too dramatic. His voice, however, cracked. He glanced around the room and finally understood, perhaps for the first time, that no one was in his corner anymore. This was the moment fans had been waiting for. The wives banding together in a manner that left Kody utterly isolated. Meri, who had remained silent for much of the night, suddenly broke her silence. She spoke softly but unflinchingly. "She's right, Kody," she told him, looking at Christine. "We've all sensed it. We've all experienced it. And it's not only about Robyn. It's about us all." Janelle nodded steadfastly. "We invested everything in this family. We believed in you. And you gave us nothing in return." The words hung in the air. For years Kody had rationalized that the wives were bitter, only ungrateful. But now, with Meri and Janelle agreeing with Christine in the open, his typical defenses didn't apply. It wasn't one wife spilling old scars. It was a shared truth, a truth too large to deny. Robyn, still crying, finally spoke up. She gazed at Kody, her cheeks flushed with emotion. "I stood up for you in front of everyone. I thought you would never do to me what you did to them. But now," her voice broke, "now I understand." Those words struck Kody more than anything. Robyn, his wife, whom he always relied on, the one who remained loyal even when the rest abandoned him, was questioning him. And here's where it shifted from a fight in the family to a breaking point. Robyn was no longer arguing on behalf of Kody. She was siding with the other wives. For the viewers at home, it was breathtaking. Fans had long wondered if Kody and Robyn's marriage was cracked, but no one ever dreamed it would play out so public. Christine's revelation hadn't only revealed the past, it remade the present. The wives were together, finally, not because they were suddenly best friends, but because they all knew the reality. Kody had brought disunity for years, and now the disunity had fallen on his head. Kody, feeling he was losing control, attacked. He called Christine manipulative, Meri cold, Janelle disloyal, and Robyn forgetful of everything he had given up. But the more he spoke, the more he sounded weaker. His statements were no longer believable. They were excuses, and everybody could tell. Christine remained calm. She didn't shout. She didn't fight. She simply gazed at him and said, "It's over, Kody. You can't dictate the story anymore." And here's the emotional core of it all. Christine wasn't discussing the marriage. She was discussing the family's narrative. The means in which Kody always positioned himself as the victim, the misunderstood husband, the guy attempting to hold everything together. That story had funded the show for years, but now it was gone. Robyn gazed at Christine with something close to gratitude. She finally got it. The isolation the other wives had endured. She finally got it. Her special place was at another's expense, and that even her space wasn't secure. And that's the surprise no one was expecting. Christine's words didn't only liberate her, they liberated Robyn as well. As the evening progressed, the room became still. No one was too exhausted to continue arguing. The wives glared at each other, some sorrowfully, some with relief. But there was a mutual knowing also. The family as they had known it was over. Kody settled back, finally quiet, the burden of it all finally bearing down. He had spent years at the center of the spotlight, the guy with several wives and a reality TV show centered around his life. But now he was just one man in a dysfunctional family. Christine got up, ready to go. Her say had been said, her truth revealed. She wasn't going to battle anymore. She was finished. And as she exited, viewers knew they had just seen the tipping point. This wasn't merely another fight in the Brown home.
This was the end of Kody's dominance, the dismantling of the facade he fought so diligently to maintain. For the audience, it was heartbreaking and empowering. Heartbreaking to watch a family disintegrate so publicly, but empowering to watch the wives, particularly Christine, retake their voice after all those years of silence. The OMG moment wasn't solely Kody embarrassing Robyn. The real shock was when Christine revealed her bombshell and transformed the family forever.